Hello, everybody. Welcome to our fashion and beauty webinar, a chat with experts. We'll give people a few more kind of minutes to join. We did kind of kickstart a minute or two early, so we'll kind of let people join. But my name's Josh. I'm the marketing manager at Fluid Digital. We are an e-commerce agency based in Manchester. We work across Magento and Shopify, and we also do PPC and Amazon marketing as well. And I'll let Fiona and James introduce themselves as well. Fiona, do you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Fiona, Head of Marketing at LoyaltyLion. We are a data-driven loyalty and engagement platform working with fast growth merchants around the world. We work across Shopify, Shopify Plus, Magento, BigCommerce, just helping you grow your customer lifetime value and retention.
Nice. James?
Brilliant, thank you. Afternoon, everyone. I'm James Owen. I'm the Partnerships Manager for Trustpilot. And if you're not familiar with Trustpilot, we are the community-driven reviews platform. So we're a global business now. 24, our reviews are translated into 24 different languages. We've got something like 90 million even live reviews sitting on Trustpilot.
Nice. Yeah, I guess a bit of a background as well for people kind of whilst people join the webinar. This was meant to be an offline event kind of a couple of weeks ago, but considering the circumstances, like many other events, we have turned it into an online one. It was meant to be a roundtable. We were going to host it in Manchester, but thankfully through use of technology, we've been able to take it online and kind of open it to everybody, which is good. So the format is going to be slightly different to kind of a standard presentation heavy webinar. We're just going to kick it off with a short presentation from myself, where I'll be sharing some findings from 2 reports that Fluid will be releasing soon. So I'll be sharing some exclusive findings from those reports, and those reports are from the health and beauty sector and the jewellery and accessories sectors. And then we have some questions planned afterwards for Fiona, James and myself, but we would really appreciate it if you have any questions about loyalty, about reviews, or about anything in the reports that I'll be talking about. Do let us know, because we want it to be as interactive as possible, as if it would have been maybe a real life roundtable event. So we do have some questions that we want to kind of ask, and maybe some people have asked us beforehand, but it's going to be really useful for everybody if anybody asks any questions as well throughout the webinar, so we'll be able to get them in. So if we kick off kind of the short presentation to begin with, like I said, these are just some findings from our health and beauty reports and our jewellery and accessories report as well. So a bit of background as to what these are. So these are our industry reports that we have been releasing and we will be releasing over the next few months at Fluid Digital. We recently launched our Home and Garden 100 report, and the next ones that we are due to launch is the Health and Beauty 100 and the Jewellery and Accessories 50. So these are benchmark reports, and they are analysing 100 retailers in the health and beauty industry and 50 retailers in the jewellery and accessories industries as well. So we thought it would be really useful for the people on the webinar tonight to hear some of the findings from those reports. The reports cover kind of all of the core tenets of e-commerce. So speed and security, mobile UX, product and collection page UX, sorting, filtering and site search, reviews, trust, community and loyalty, checkout and payments, and then delivery and click and collect as well. Naturally, some of the delivery and click and collect trends are going to be a little bit different during this report, but I'll kind of clarify any of those once I go through those as well. Each of the retailers in the report has been given a benchmark score based on the number of scoring criteria that we've outlined in the report. And what this does, it gives us a really good list of top performing retailers that everyone can take inspiration from. It's not really meant to be, you know, a core ranking of retailers to, you know, kind of penalize people or reward people. It just gives us an idea of who we can really take inspiration from, and retailers, some retailers that maybe have some areas of improvement as well. So obviously the reports aren't launched yet, but what I will say is if you do want to be notified for when the reports are live, do recommend you sign up to our email newsletter, which you can do so if you go to fluid-digital.com. So I will crack on with some of the stats that we've found and some of the key findings. So kind of the key findings here, I think that I found interesting, but there's nothing really groundbreaking here. But what it does do is it really kind of consolidates a lot of the belief that many people have about the industry as well. the first key finding that we realized were fashion and beauty retailers are definitely often the trendsetters for wider e-commerce. They're usually kind of the first industry to adopt many of the latest technologies in e-commerce, and they really do act as the trendsetters for e-commerce in other industries like home and garden, or kind of B2B or any other sector as well. Most fashion and beauty retailers are embracing new technologies such as Klarna, and new social media platforms such as Instagram. And I say new with kind of speech marks there because it is new in comparison to other industries that are still, putting all of the stuff into Facebook and Twitter, but Instagram for them is new. So kind of the principle there is fashion and beauty retailers are embracing the new stuff in e-commerce, which is obviously brilliant. But the last finding there, which was maybe one of the more interesting findings that we took from the report, is that there are still many fashion and beauty retailers that are not mastering maybe basic UX. Perhaps this is in sacrifice of design and aesthetic. So there might be some functionality that maybe retailers don't want to put on the website because it might compromise some of the design and look and feel of the website. But there's still a lot that just aren't mastering, basic UX, which might also be hindering conversion rate. And potentially things like customer retention rate as well. But obviously that's unique to individual retailers there. So onto some trends then. So one of the first things in the report that we analyze is site speed. So these are the site speed scores relating to the Google Page Speed Index. There are many criticisms of the Google Page Speed Index, but what it's good at is putting together a benchmark figure that kind of you can benchmark yourself against. So for mobile, it was quite a low average site speed score of 22 out of 100, compared to desktop, which was 55 out of 100. So I think that's good for other retailers in those sectors, maybe test where your site speed score is in Google Page Index and understand within your industry, are you maybe below average or above average? Because it's interesting to see, obviously, that mobile is lower than desktop. So what can retailers do to improve those scores there? And then moving on to reviews and trust, it'd be really interesting to maybe hear James maybe chime in on a few of these trends, and obviously from a Trustpilot perspective. One of the first things there is 74% of retailers use reassurance messaging in headers, and what we've meant by reassurance messaging is on your header, if you've got those trust marks like free delivery or kind of made in the UK, or those kind of initial trust marks that you see when you go on a website. And 74% of retailers are using them in headers, which is good, and it's a really good tenet of good UX there. And then when it comes to specific reviews, so 55% of retailers within the health and beauty and jewellery and accessories industries are showcasing reviews on home pages. So only really about half of retailers are utilising that space to showcase some of the reviews. But kind of to no surprise, 83% of retailers are using reviews on product pages, which is obviously a lot higher than home pages, but that's still a good kind of 25% of retailers that are not using reviews on product pages. So James, I don't know what your thoughts are there about kind of maybe why maybe not so many retailers are using reviews on home pages. Kind of what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, no, thanks, Joshua. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head in the previous slide with regard to the aesthetics of the websites. We've got some real high-end brands that use Trustpilot, such as, say, Kurt Geiger, Dior, and you wouldn't ever know from landing on their homepage that they actually use Trustpilot a lot of the time. So I think it's where the Trustpilot branding in their eyes might conflict with how their website looks and their products and things, basically. Mm-hmm. But it is such a key point for anyone online because it's so competitive to display reviews, and a platform such as Trustpilot that is, to coin the phrase, so trusted and so well known, it is a real great thing to tap into. I do think anyone that's not displaying product reviews on their product pages is missing a huge point. Also from an SEO perspective as well, Google absolutely loves user generated content, and if you display it in one of our SEO enabled widgets on the site, it just does wonders for conversions. And user-generated content as well, we find, is something like 5 times more trusted than any sort of manufacturer's description or articles or branding. It's people that have bought the product, reviewing said product on the website, which is extremely powerful. And we've done some research as well, complementary to what you've been doing at Fluid with the COVID crisis at the moment as well. And we found there's been a 22% decrease in trust in companies since the outbreak. So reviews and trust are extremely, extremely important at the moment, probably more than ever, basically.
Right. Okay. No. Yeah. That's actually really interesting. And yeah, kind of, it may be that maybe retailers aren't utilizing that space on homepages in compromise of design, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, like you said, it is a key part of improving your conversion rate if you have that trust there. Especially now, like you said, when retailers are really kind of shopping more online, they want to know who they can trust. So moving on to some of the next trends that we looked at, and which is loyalty. So we found of the retailers that we analysed that 30% of retailers have a loyalty scheme. That may look low compared to 100%, but it's definitely interesting that in comparison to our home and garden report, which we've just released, I think that was 3% of home and garden retailers have a loyalty scheme. So definitely a huge jump there for fashion and beauty retailers. Fiona, what are your thoughts there in terms of the fashion beauty industry and using loyalty schemes?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think one of the reasons that fashion and beauty is probably higher than home and garden is the nature of the purchases. So if you're thinking things like makeup, things like fast fashion, they're highly repeatable purchases. You're going to get people coming back more and more regularly. So a loyalty program is going to deliver a return faster, which I think is probably the reason that number is slightly higher in this report. But I think in terms of why it's kind of still quite low, to be honest, there's quite a few common misconceptions around loyalty. One is that it's quite costly to implement. One is that it's very complex to implement. And I think there's still quite a big education piece that needs to happen to kind of disprove both those theories. And in terms of cost, well, it doesn't have to be expensive at all. We're seeing a lot more of our retailers these days go for quite experiential rewards that don't cost anything. So instead of percentages off a next purchase or something, you could redeem points in exchange for exclusive content that other people can't access, or early access to a new sale or something. And then you've given people a reason to come back with no extra expense to your store. And then on the complexity point, well, you don't have to launch Tesco's Club Card or Sainsbury's Nectar the minute you launch a loyalty program. You can go for something really basic initially. The only sort of prerequisite is that it really matches your branding and aligns with your values, and you probably want to get the name right first time round, because that's really difficult to change. But aside from that, you can start with the most simple program that just rewards purchases and account signups or something like that, and then expand it out over time and start using it to power your other marketing as you go. You don't have to have all the answers firsthand. So I think those are probably the two biggest barriers that actually contribute to the number being as low as 30%. But we're trying to win people around on that.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good point there. You don't have to have this whole like a huge loyalty scheme when you first start out. Many of the retailers that we did look at when we're looking at this report, they did have just a very basic just page, which kind of just said every pound you spend, you get a point. And it almost looked a little bit manual some of the times, because they were just starting out very simply and wanted to test whether to see if it worked or not. So yeah, you're right. It doesn't have to be this big complex thing to begin with. Obviously, if it's working for you, you want to scale it up. But yeah, that's definitely interesting. So moving on to some other trends then. So payments here is another interesting one. So we analysed how many of the retailers in the report were using Klarna, PayPal, Amazon Pay, and Apple/Google Pay as a payment method there. Obviously, PayPal is absolutely huge, and kind of almost every single retailer is using PayPal as a payment option there. Again, Klarna, 25% of the retailers in the report, obviously it's fashion and beauty, were using Klarna. That is still quite low in comparison to PayPal, but definitely in comparison to some of the other industries, that's a lot higher than we are seeing in other industries. So the fashion and beauty industry there is really embracing those new technologies. One of the things that I was surprised at is maybe how low Amazon Pay and Apple Pay were there in comparison to maybe some other retailers. It's such a simple thing from a customer point of view to be able to purchase using Apple Pay, maybe especially from a fashion and beauty point of view, where you're not buying a sofa and you're not buying sometimes these kind of huge payments. So using Apple Pay can be really quick and easy and a good way to improve your conversion rate, but there's still a lot of retailers that aren't using it, which I found personally interesting. Some of the other trends, so community. So in terms of kind of social media platforms and that kind of experience outside of the purchase, this is another interesting trend that, again, wasn't necessarily groundbreaking for us, but definitely just consolidated some of the stuff that we already thought was true. So obviously Facebook is still huge for a lot of retailers, and it's almost just something you kind of have to have whether that's from an SEO perspective or just from a findability perspective, many retailers are still using Facebook as a channel. But the dip in Twitter there, especially in comparison to Instagram, is unsurprising, really. Instagram is a very visual platform, so from a fashion and beauty perspective, obviously those retailers are using that a lot more than maybe other platforms like Twitter. But then on the fourth bar there, obviously kind of blogs and guides, they're still core to an on-site experience for a lot of fashion and beauty retailers. Kind of over 75% of retailers that have some kind of blog, whether that's sharing tips and tricks for makeup or styling trends, or if you are more on the health side of the health and beauty, showcasing some myths in the industry and kind of what's true and whatnot. Anything like that to go on your blog or your guides is actually really useful and can improve your conversion rate if those are useful for your customers. So I thought that was particularly interesting. I don't know if you guys have any comments on that, because I think some of the social media stuff definitely ties in with reviews and loyalty. I don't know what your thoughts are.
I mean, I think from a loyalty perspective, it's a big thing, especially at the moment, actually, where people are having a lot more time to spend online on social media platforms. And again, we see a lot of people rewarding social activity and using it to build a real community. And it's super important to get people talking about your brand, and the people that are most loyal to you are the most likely to talk about your brand on those platforms. So it's pretty important to connect it all up, I would say.
Yeah, definitely.
And if I could chime in there as well, Josh, we sort of find at Trustpilot from a blog perspective, it's a really great way for prospective customers that are maybe going to buy a specific product or engage with a service to actually understand what it looks like when they get it, how it works, how it operates. So if there is some kind of how-to guides or some detail about what it looks like and everything like that, especially in the fashion and beauty, when you look at kind of the application of the product, basically. So we find that they are extremely powerful. Lots of people are consulting blogs just to make sure that it is what it says it is, basically.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. So they're just some of the trends that we have found from the report. The report, when we do release it, goes into a lot more detail about those specific trends, but also trends across e-commerce as well. So obviously didn't really touch too much on kind of delivery there, but that's all in the report. As well as some other stuff. So I definitely recommend, if you're interested in reading the whole report, make sure you sign up to the email newsletter for Fluid so that you can be updated when the report is released. And obviously you can also see all of the retailers that were included in the report as well, and see who is on top of those rankings and who maybe has areas of improvement as well. So we have some questions then for Fiona and James, and maybe myself if I can chime in. That we have here, but please do, if you have any questions, use the chat in the Zoom window there to ask us any questions, and then we can make sure that we can do our best to answer those as well. So James, we've got a few for you to begin with. So Trustpilot shows all reviews, good and bad. So do you have any advice on how to best handle those negative reviews, maybe specifically from a fashion and beauty perspective?
Yeah, it's a really good point. No Trustpilot review is ever set in stone, and no company is going to be 100% perfect. You are going to be susceptible to negative feedback, but it's how you react and remedy that negative feedback will determine how good your business is, basically. So if someone's paid for next day delivery and doesn't turn the next day, naturally you might get a 1-star or a negative review there. If you post a well-written reply to a negative review, it's actually worth, from what we found, the equivalent of 10 5-star reviews. So a well-written reply to a negative review has actually got the same weight to 10 5-star reviews. And if you generally have dropped the ball, and remedy that situation, take it offline, liaise with that consumer, post a public reply. Someone is going to look to buy from a business and they can see some negative reviews. So let's say 95 out of 100 reviews are positive, but there's 5 negative reviews. Everyone wants to see why that business has got 5 negative reviews, and they want to read and see how a business react. So if a business has reacted in a timely manner, you can kind of go, right, if I do have a bad experience, this company is going to look after me. So my advice would be, don't be scared of it, embrace it. It's a great way to understand more about your products and your levels of service, but also don't ignore it. Don't kind of escape it. You do have to reply to it and acknowledge what has been said.
Yeah, I think I don't know if you agree, but definitely in this climate, retailers aren't necessarily dropping the ball at the moment, but there's definitely issues that they're trying to resolve and
overstretch sort of thing.
So if things do go wrong, just explain it and kind of offer as much support to the customer as you can through the reviews. I think that's definitely key. So in the last couple of months, in the current situation that we're in, do you think people have been checking reviews more or less, or are they more or less important, and why?
Yeah, no, exactly. So I've got some stats I can share here. So we found since March that 27.5% of people are checking reviews more. So we're seeing a lot more people are consulting reviews more than ever, basically. And 56% of people as well are worried about scammers, which is quite interesting. So when we have reached out to consumers to see how they're getting on, a lot are really concerned about what is going on. And 75% of people also want to see the virus, i.e. if they've got to extend their delivery times and how they're going to be looked after, basically. So I think they are consulting it more than ever. We're seeing similar levels in terms of people reading reviews up to like Black Friday. I was looking at some of the stats here. We average Trustpilot every 28 days, averages about 4.8 billion brand impressions. So people are viewing Trustpilot logos, widgets, banners across the internet 4.8 billion times. It's at 6.9 billion in the last 28 days. So it is just kind of it's cementing that people are consulting reviews more than ever.
Yeah. If I can just, sorry to interrupt, but just to jump in there, we've been doing some looking at loyalty data as well from the past couple of months, and we found that at the moment customers are more likely to leave reviews as well. Like that number's been rising consistently through March and April, and actually members are being rewarded for leaving reviews far more than they were back in the back end of February. So I think a customer's propensity to leave reviews is also currently going up.
Yeah, I think just from myself as a consumer, I wanted to support some of the retailers that I personally shopped with as best I can, and sometimes it is just I can just leave them a review, and for me, that's 3 minutes of my time, but for them that can really help them out. So I'm sure there's many other consumers who are thinking like that as well. They just want to support the retailers that they love. Fiona, what about from a loyalty perspective? Do you think in the current climate that we're in, people are more interested in loyalties kind of programs and getting involved with retailers or not?
Yeah, it's been really interesting actually. I think we've seen a few things going up. So we've seen that actually loyalty program members are just a really reliable source of income at the moment. So they're still redeeming and earning points at the same rate, if not slightly higher than they were pre-COVID. So program engagement is still really high. Customers who are part of your loyalty program want to be part of it and want to engage with you. As I said, they are leaving more reviews, and actually they're making far more referrals as well. So they're keen to act as advocates, and it might be, as you say, that they want to help brands. It could also be that they kind of want to help friends and family and send on discount codes, referral codes, that kind of thing. And then the interesting thing that we're seeing is the number of orders coming in, the number of guest orders and stuff is going up beautifully over the last sort of 4 or 5 weeks or so, but the number of new customers that people are managing to turn into members it has not gone up so much. So we're seeing a big gap. People are engaging with brands. They're keen to start a new relationship with a brand. Well, they're certainly not against starting a new relationship with a brand, but brands aren't doing enough to win that person in straight away and to turn it into a longer term engagement and part of a loyalty program.
All right, that's actually really interesting then. So what type of strategies have you seen e-commerce stores use recently to encourage customers to redeem their points? Not only to kind of get involved in those platforms, but to redeem their points.
Yeah, there's a few things that we see a lot of our stores doing. I think the first thing is probably putting a bit of an urgency on it. So points expiry times is always a good way to go. So you could say, hey, we use points balance statements, monthly emails to say you've got these many points available, and if you just add an expiry date on there, say these are going to roll off within a month if you don't use them. It's a great way to get people to come back and spend them, and actually having a tier structure as well. So if you have if we look at someone like Skinny Dip, for example, they've got 4 tiers. And as you go through the tiers, you unlock different benefits. So the basic ones are things like redeem your points for money off your next purchase. But then the next tier could be early access to sales or exclusive invites to events, probably virtual events just at the moment. But as you work through the tiers, it's very aspirational because the more points you spend and redeem, the more you get these great rewards. So tiers is a good way of doing it. And then I think what we're seeing a lot more of, which I really, really like, is rewards that are based on beliefs and brand values. So we've got people like Pacifica Beauty, for example, if you recycle your mascara bottle, you can earn more points that way. And then we've got people like dog food brands where you can redeem your points. Instead of benefits to you, you can use it to donate to a dog shelter or to buy some booties for a dog or something like that. So people are really encouraging members to redeem their points against things that they actually really believe in and want to sort of make a bit of a difference with. And that's a great way to just get people engaged and get them redeeming their points. And ultimately, that's what you want. If they're earning points and they're coming back to redeem them, they're repeat purchasing, and that's what you're after. So
that's a really great idea. I love that. So maybe on the flip side then, when is the best time, do you think, to ask customers to sign up to your loyalty programs? Is it in that post-purchase experience, once they start that relationship? Or is there even kind of during checkout before they've even kind of start that journey with you?
It's a really interesting question. I'm not sure I can give you a definitive one or the other. I think it has to be both, really. So, I mean, at the checkout is the optimal time, and that's partly because I can't tell you the number off the top of my head, but I do know that somebody who joins a program and then makes their first purchase has a higher average order value than someone who checks out as a guest. So you definitely want to be encouraging them to create that account as part of their checkout process, and ultimately then you can give them points that they can redeem almost immediately, which again just adds to their average order value and the likelihood of them coming back. So by getting them to create an account at checkout and become a member at checkout, you're capturing them really early on and you're just ensuring that you can keep in touch with them. However, a lot of people won't necessarily want to do that. They could be in a hurry, they could be checking out on their mobile, it's just another thing to do, etc., etc. So then it's really about building it into your post-purchase. And actually post-purchase might be a better time because they're a satisfied customer, they've got their products, they love it. They're probably going to want to engage with you so that they come back. So I think whether you do it at the checkout or you do it in your post-purchase, the important thing is just making sure that you do it, because the customer lifetime value of a member is so much greater.
Yeah, I think it's definitely interesting. Obviously, like you said, it kind of just depends on what your journey is. But I know from a consumer perspective, again, there's nothing worse than when you kind of sign up, and I mean not sign up to the loyalty program, but sign up to a brand and make a purchase without signing up to the loyalty program, and then you sign up after, and you feel like you've missed out on the first points that you could have had. So it definitely does depend.
Yeah, and I think you can. So most of our merchants reward account signups. So you can definitely make it so that people go back and get those points afterwards, so that you're not missing out. But again, that creates a nice sense of urgency. It's a nice nice way of getting people signed up to show them what they've missed out on.
Yeah. Another question I have, we've got some coming in, so I'll ask the question I've got here, and then we'll kind of jump to the audience there. But a lot of customers drop off after their first purchase, and there's a lot of retailers that are hesitant to offer discounting. So is there an alternative to discounting that you can offer to encourage them to return?
Definitely. And I think, I guess that brings me to a third objection that some people have about loyalty programs and why you don't see so many luxury brands with them. And it's really this idea that it's all discounts and it cheapens your brand. And it's not necessarily the case at all. So I kind of touched on this a little bit, but you can really go for these experience-based rewards, early access to sales. Some people do, beta trials of new beauty products that they're launching. Members can be the first people to try them out and feedback on them. Create communities. People can have exclusive access to a Facebook community where they can compare notes with people. There's all sorts of things that you can do that are more of an experience and make people feel special and like a VIP rather than just a discount. But having said that, some customers do value discounts over and above everything else. So that's where the tiers come in and why it's nice to have a little bit of a mix of both, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the questions that we've got from somebody watching says, the point system is a draw for me in this time with money being tight. Exclusive sales, the recycle program is a plus as well. Do you think that the points program works just as well for services as well?
I think definitely. I mean, if you look at most of your local coffee shops or hairdressers, massage places, most of them will have those lovely, stamp systems, those cards. And that's all we're just translating that online, really. I think it can work brilliantly. And I think there's probably even more leverage for a service brand because if people are willing to leave reviews, and James, this probably one for you to pick up more, but if people are willing to leave reviews and be advocates and loyal for products, they're probably even more likely to be for services where they're having more kind of interaction.
Yeah. Perfect. So another question that would come in, which kind of is for both of you, and maybe a bit something that I can help with as well. But what does the integration with LoyaltyLion, Trustpilot, and Shopify achieve? So what's the benefit of kind of all three of those tools? So I don't know, James, if you want to kind of go first.
Yeah, sure. So we are a Shopify and a Shopify Plus partner. So you can integrate Trustpilot into your Shopify website really, really simply. I think, I might have to double check on this, but I think it's something called a module that you can download, which basically you can just fire up and run, and then you can drag and drop Trustpilot integrations onto the website. So you can display all of that amazing content that you've built up from your consumers at a service and brand level, and then also at a product level as well on your specific product pages and on the specific listings. You can also automate the review collection process with Shopify. So you can integrate it into the shopping cart section, and then you can send if you want, you can, on the day that they've received their purchase, Trustpilot can be triggered. It knows, it's really intelligent through the integration with Shopify. So you can send an automated review request like, "Dear Joshua, thank you very much for buying XYZ. We've partnered with Trustpilot. I'd love to hear your feedback." So the customers can leave a review really quickly like that. And then in 2 weeks' time, it could then be triggered again to send a second review for more sentiment on a product level to collect product reviews. But Shopify is a really smart integration with us, and it's beautifully simple to get up and running with it.
Yeah, is that the same for you, Fiona, as well, from a LoyaltyLion perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. And then in terms of how you can use Shopify, Trustpilot, and LoyaltyLion together, so our integration with Trustpilot essentially allows you to incentivize people to leave reviews. So if somebody's made a purchase, you can have a trigger email, as James says, and that can include, "Hey, did you know if you come back and leave a review, you can earn 50 points?" And we actually deepened the integration not that long ago to actually help you to turn reviewers into referrers as well. So you can use those emails to say, "Hey, we saw that you left a 5-star review. Do you want to earn some more points by referring a friend?"
Yeah, cool. I know one of the things that I didn't mention as well when I was going through some of the trends in that report there, but all of the retailers included in the report are either Magento or Shopify. They're the only two platforms that we've used in the report there. And it's kind of a 50-50 split. So one of the things that I'm sure will be useful for people when they're reading the report is understanding, maybe without getting into a kind of a platform war, just understanding where Shopify has maybe come out on top in those areas of e-commerce in comparison to maybe retailers and Magento as well. Maybe I don't know what your thoughts are, kind of Fiona and James, on the integration with LoyaltyLion, Trustpilot, and Magento. Kind of how does that differ?
We did with Magento, sort of thing, you say?
Yeah. So is it the same kind of thing with Magento there, where it's an easy integration, or is it a little bit different?
Absolutely identical. You just download a module again and it integrates exactly the same with Magento, and you can do the same that you can do with Shopify, Magento, WordPress, WooCommerce, all of them. You can do the same.
Perfect.
Yeah, and the same from our side. I guess the only difference is on Shopify we have a free plan, which is not available on Magento, but in terms of functionality, obviously there's a bit more to play with on the Shopify side because we're a Plus partner. There's Shopify Flow for automation, there's Shopify POS. So I guess there's a little bit more functionality on the Shopify side by nature of some of the Plus features out there. But most of the kind of general things you need to get started on Magento are all there as well.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. One of the questions that I've got then, just off the back of maybe that question, is from a fashion and beauty perspective. I know that Shopify is a huge go-to platform for those retailers. Why do you think that is? And I think you, Fiona, touched on some of the points there, like flow. So I don't know if you want to go first.
It's a good question. I think if I go back to conversations with my CEO, Charlie, as to why LoyaltyLion was founded, it's all around accessibility. I think the e-commerce market has expanded the way it has because these platforms exist and anybody can go and set up a store. And I think Shopify is probably just slightly more accessible for stores who are starting out, and in terms of being able to just kind of sign up and add your own store, add your own products. And then I think in terms of, it's the technology stack that you can build with both these platforms, really. I mean, it's so interesting to see someone like John Lewis takes decades to build out this huge technology stack that they built from scratch, and somebody who does maybe 50 orders a week could build out the same tech stack on Shopify and the App Store now. And it's phenomenal in terms of the accessibility that's there now.
Yeah. What do you think, James? Why do you think Shopify is maybe a go-to platform for a lot of the fashion beauty retailers?
I think as well, you can make some really pretty looking websites. We've got a lot of companies that have built out some Shopify stuff, and exactly what Fiona was saying, you could really get a really impressive piece of kit on the go in a relatively short space of time, and it's really simple, and it integrates with loads of other partners that you'd want to integrate with, and it is it's sort of a no-brainer to look to in the first instance, and it is pretty achievable as well in terms of costings. So I think it is a really good go-to for fashion and beauty, just because you can get it looking really, really attractive. Because as we saw from your slide earlier, with sort of 56% of people being a bit reluctant to display reviews on the homepage, it's probably because they've achieved a really smart-looking homepage. So they're sometimes a little bit conscientious about popping other things in there, really.
Yeah, I think without being the devil's advocate here as well, then maybe for Magento, but maybe into what we were talking about earlier then, I know Shopify, obviously you've got all of the pre-built themes you can use, which look brilliant, and with Shopify, kind of fashion beauty retailers can really build a really nice looking website which matches their design and aesthetic. But with Magento, obviously there's a lot of different functionality there, which maybe retailers in those industries are not using in sacrifice of maybe some of that good looking design. And as well, obviously, kind of Magento obviously has its benefits too from a B2B perspective. There's a lot more functionality there, and I know in this time there's a lot of fashion B2B retailers going D2C for the first time, and maybe even vice versa in some instances. And then obviously internationalization as well. Magento has a huge kind of functionality set there as well, which obviously Shopify does as well for those points. So it's definitely worth just evaluating. But yeah, Shopify has definitely been a clear go-to for a lot of fashion beauty retailers for the reasons that you said as well. Another question that we have for you, James, is to maybe just clarify some of the review terminology, and maybe that's what is the difference between an open and closed review platform?
Yeah, sure. That's a really good point. So Trustpilot's an open platform and it's community driven. So there is other, dare I say, competitors to Trustpilot out there that are a closed platform, meaning that if you wanted to leave a review for a business that uses a closed platform, you can only do it if that business has invited you. So without naming any names, sometimes there is, are they cherry picking, for example? Are they inviting everyone? So in the eyes of the consumer, it is less trustworthy. That is a fact. Whereas Trustpilot's an open platform. So if you've got a really strong motivation to voice your opinion about a product or service experience that you've had, you go onto trustpilot.com, enter in the company's URL, create a free profile if it's the first time leaving a review, and then leave a review for that business. We monitor a crazy amount of data points for all of the organic reviews that are left to make sure that they are honest and real and genuine reviews. Business receives a review organically that maybe breaches the guidelines, or that they don't know who that consumer is. We've got a fine reviewer tool where that they can liaise with the consumer offline to ascertain maybe an order number so they can marry them up, or if they maybe disagree with the review and they report it for guideline breaching reasons. The second that's reported, it's invisible. It goes to our content integrity team, and we will physically contact the reviewer to say, hey Josh, look, you posted a review for LoyaltyLion. Can you just provide evidence that you have had an experience with them, just to make sure it's honest and genuine? And of course, on top of that, like we touched on, you can still send verified review requests to Trustpilot, which you can then use in marketing channels such as paid search, Google Shopping, and other places, basically. But it all boils down to, in the eyes of the consumer, I mean, I'm a bit biased, but I'd want to buy from a company knowing that, warts and all, they're not hiding anything, and they're not potentially kind of manipulating the truth. But yeah, like I said, I'm probably a bit biased.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. We've got another question about Trustpilot. Do Trustpilot have video review functionality in their roadmap? Fashion and beauty brands are crying out for this functionality from Trustpilot. What's your comment there?
Yeah, that's a brilliant. I've just seen that's coming from Ben. That's a really great question, Ben. We have actually just released, in line with that, photo reviews now. So for all existing product review users on Trustpilot, a reviewer can actually upload an image with their product review, which is really, really cool. And this looks fantastic. And of course, the conversion rates for that are going to only further increase because it all goes down to user-generated content. So there's a big, my colleague Dan actually shared this with me. They're doing really well. I think they're called Gosney pizza ovens at the moment, and they've got some beautiful looking pizzas that are like, but their ovens are like 400 quid. You think, hang on, the pizzas look amazing coming out of it the other end. And then you scroll down to the reviews, and you can actually see all of the people that have bought 400 quid pizza oven. They do bang out some amazing looking pizzas, so that would be fantastic. And in answer to the question, I think it is on the roadmap from what I've seen, the video functionality, but there's obviously quite a few parameters to sort that, but it is definitely one of the real key ones and key focus for the product dev team this year, and certainly next year.
Great, thank you for that. So I think that's all the questions that kind of I've written down as well, and maybe all the questions that have come through, but if you do have any questions, put it in whilst we just ask maybe this last one. And the last one is, in the current climate with lockdown and regulations and all that kind of stuff, what is your top tip for fashion and beauty retailers specifically to help them grow and survive and thrive at the moment? I don't know, Fiona, if you want to go first.
Yeah, sure. I think my top tip would be this lockdown and this whole situation is affecting different people in different ways. Some people are going to be more likely to make purchases because they're bored at home. Some people are going to be less likely to because they're having to tighten their belts a little bit. And I think being really cognizant of that as a brand is very important. And so you need to find ways to engage with your customer base and your member base in between purchases, but it shouldn't be all about products and hard sells at this point. You have to be a little bit sensitive to the fact that not everybody is going to be in a position to be sold to right now. So I think it's finding new and innovative ways to make that engagement. And there's a couple of examples that spring to mind that our customers are doing really nicely. So both Astrid and Mayu, who are a jewelry brand, and Lively, who are an underwear brand, they're both doing virtual styling online. So you can book an appointment with somebody from their stores. You can chat through your wants, your needs, what suits me, what doesn't, etc. But you're not committing to buying anything. You're not being sold to. It is just a way of engaging in between purchases. And I think it's a really nice way of saying, hey, we're here. We're here, kind of keeping up a relationship with you, but we'll be here when you're ready to make a purchase, not you have to make a purchase now.
Yeah, I think that's really salient there. James, what about you? What's your top tip for fashion and beauty retailers at the moment?
Yeah, I think to be quite open with them in the sense of be really customer centric and just be honest and open and say, hey, look, it's not going to be a next day delivery or 5 to 7 days. It's probably going to take this is how long it's going to take, and just keep them in the loop. The reviews that I have been reading are from consumers that maybe feel that they haven't been kept in the loop fully about delivery times and maybe the return process and everything like that. So I think be really upfront and honest about it and just say, hey, look, it's probably going to be delayed because of XYZ reasons. We're really, really busy and whatever. Just keep them in the loop. People are understanding. At the end of the day, we are all human. And a couple of nice things that I've sort of seen that's been really good that's kind of prompted me to make purchases online. I said, hey, look, a percentage of this order is going to be donated to the NHS or some sort of related charity. That just seems to be quite a nice touch, basically. I think, Michael, on my advice.
Yeah, great, thank you. So yeah, before we finish off the webinar, we've got one last question from Adiola about Trustpilot again, so maybe we can just help her out there. And it's, does Trustpilot feed into Google reviews like Facebook reviews? And if not, is this integration likely to occur in the future?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. If I'm trying to answer that as best as I can in terms of trying to understand all that sort of feeding in, basically. So Trustpilot, we've got license agreements with Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. So you can share all of your Trustpilot reviews across those 4 social channels. In terms of Google and Google reviews, we don't necessarily feed directly into, say, the Google My Business listing, the GMB stuff on the right-hand side. But as we are a Google review partner, you can actually feed Trustpilot reviews directly into pay-per-click advertising at a product level, such as Google Shopping, and on the search page, so search end results in the forms of rich snippets. So Adiola, in answer to your question, we probably can do exactly everything you're saying there, and I'm happy to maybe pick that up offline if you want to go into details.
Perfect. Okay, and one last question. We've got one for LoyaltyLion there, and then we'll end it off. If you do have any more questions, you can hit either myself, Fiona, or James on LinkedIn as well. And the last question is there a way to link loyalty in store and online with both apps?
There certainly is for LoyaltyLion. If you are using Shopify POS, then you can connect to your program and people can earn points in one place, redeem them in another, and fully sync up. I would have to check. I think it is just Shopify POS at this point, but I can check that and come back to you.
Great stuff. So yeah, like I said, if you've got any more questions, feel free to find either myself, Joshua Hobson, or Fiona Stevens or James Owen on LinkedIn, and I'm sure all three of us will be happy to help and answer any questions. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. We hope you found it useful. Like I said, the report that we mentioned at the beginning will be live in the next few weeks, but if you want to be notified, just sign up to the Fluid Digital email newsletter. But also, like we mentioned again, if you have any questions specifically about loyalty and LoyaltyLion or reviews on Trustpilot, Fiona Stevens and James are in there. Find them and they'll be able to help. So yeah, thank you everybody for joining us, and we hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.